It's time for the Sin Bin. 5 minutes for fighting.
All right. Hello, everyone. It's been a long while, but we're back, baby. We've had a couple just busy weeks where we couldn't kind of record anything. And welcome to the Sin Bin. I can't remember what episode it is. I'm pretty sure it's episode 6. It's just been so long. I'm Cam, your local Boston Bruins fan, and with me is going to be Alex, your local Flyers fan. We have a very, very hotly contested episode for you guys today. And by the title, as you guys can imagine, it's going to be the Carolina Cap Conundrum, because after this season, they are going to have a lot of questions that they're going to need to answer with respect to their roster. In particular, we are going to raise the question that was posed by Elliot Freeman in his 32 Thoughts. I think it was podcast or article? Can you correct me?
I think it was his podcast, I believe.
On his podcast. He had said that there is a possibility that exists where Martin Necas is traded in the offseason to make the necessary cap room, or I shouldn't say the necessary cap room, but to alleviate the pressure of signing him to a potentially a really high value deal in order to sign the other players that need to kind of be signed here. So allow me to set the table and just kind of explain to you, all of you fans out there, the current cap situation from Carolina. And for you Carolina fans listening out here, I got to tell you, it does not look good. So this year, upon season's end, Carolina will have $27.3 million in cap space. Your UFAs are going to be Teuvo Teravainen, Jake Gensel, Martinuk, Nosen, Pesci, Shea, D'Angelo, and Chatfield. Big names. Your RFAs, Necas, Jarvis, Drury, Comtois, and Coughlin. Some of those names are not as big, I will admit to that. So the current question now becomes what to do with Necas. And this is where Alex and I were literally at each other's throats during the, I think, game 2 or 3 watch. I think it was the game 2
watch party. We had about a 25 minute debate, probably about the mid to late first period about this, that just went off the rails. And then we had it led into, I believe it was Thursday, into our group chat. We got revitalized for another 25, 30-minute argument. So we're going to set the table once and for all, put an end to this, and we'll see 3 months from now where we're at, if he gets moved or assigned.
And hopefully you guys also supply us with some information or some insight in our comment section. We would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this based upon the data that we're going to present to you guys. If you feel like that we were not yelling at each other enough for you guys today, go watch game 2, watch party. I don't know the exact time frame, but just watch the whole thing. I'm pretty sure you might find it hilarious anyway, because it's mainly
it was around the 35, 40-minute mark is when it really started.
Maybe
30 to 40-minute range.
Yeah, I don't think Harry and Matt were ever as bored as they were there. But anyway, Alex, I'm going to let you lead off because I think you're on the side of that Necas is likely or will be moved.
Correct. I believe Martin Necas. I was calling him Necas all week, but I realize I was saying his name wrong. I say a lot of NHL players' names wrong, but I believe Martin Necas is going to be moved at the end of the day. I'm not going to go into full detail right off the bat, but I just feel like when you look at Carolina's situation, and at the end of the day, what they have to sign, the possible UFAs coming up, and not only this, how far this could potentially extend even past this season into the next season, it's just too much of a logjam and too small. I mean, too literally, I won't say impossible, but it causes issues elsewhere if they keep this guy and pretty much put themselves in a situation where I just don't see the benefit of keeping a guy like him on the roster when there's so many other dire needs and what he's going to potentially command, which is what, in my opinion, is the biggest thing in this. Martin Necas this year had a little bit of a step back from his year prior. 2022-23 was his coming out party. He had a 71 point, 28 goal, 41 assists. I think it was 41 assists. He had a 28 goal, 71 point season. I may have did the math wrong somewhere in there. Maybe it was 43 assists. But anyway, great season. Took a little bit of a step back this year. He played 77 games, 53 points, 24 goals. But when you look at Martin Necas' situation, it just seems like he would be better fitted on another team. And I think Carolina is going to end up seeing that personally, because there's just as Cam just mentioned, there is a lot of UFAs coming up. There's a handful of RFAs coming up, and there's only so much money you can give out. My opening argument is it would benefit Carolina in the long haul and Necas in the long haul if he were to move elsewhere. I'll go into further details shortly, but I'm going to pass the board to Cam, and I want to hear what his thought is.
Obviously it's going to be the opposite to you.
Yeah.
I don't see them moving away from Necas. While I will agree that there is a potential logjam at center, I think that team is going to also be looking to get younger. Their defense is a bit on the older side, so they need to kind of focus on that. And their forward core is moderately on the younger side, but I think they want to keep that because I think they're going to want to plan for more sustained success, especially if this year does not go their way. So I think that's something that Carolina is going to consider. So as we mentioned, this year they have $27.3 million in cap. A lot of people to sign. Next year, assuming that none of the this is still basing off of none of these players are signed, they will have more than double the cap capacity that they will have now. So I think that also plays into a role in why I believe Necas will stay and why bridge deals are going to be a huge piece to the cap success in Carolina. And I think a lot of players are going to understand that, and especially with the way the league currently is at this moment, where there are not many teams that have the capacity that will be able to take on contracts such as Necas or even afford to give up prospects and things like that for Necas that Carolina is going to require. So let's freaking get into it because I really want to swear at you. I'm going to start.
Go right ahead.
And there's a lot of things for it. And I'm going to start with the UFA.
Why?
What was that?
Did he say cry? Did he say cry or fight?
Fight. Come on.
He wants
ding,
us to
ding,
fight.
ding, fight.
We're starting. You interrupted
Ding,
us.
ding.
Jeez.
Hey, guys, that's our executive producer, Rick.
We both just got
clearly not
show-stopped.
entertained.
I was like, wait, what just happened? He's never done that
Clearly
before.
not entertained with what we're about to do. All right, so Alex, fuck you. Let's get this shit
All right,
going.
eat shit. Let's hear what
Necas is not getting traded, all right?
He's moving and
He's
watch.
not fucking moving. Anyway,
All right, let's hear
Teravainen. So let's look at the UFAs. Teravainen, they will likely sign, right? He's 29 years old. He's a left wing, right wing. He currently makes $5.4 million. I see him making either 6.5 to 7 million.
I think we're in the same ballpark of what I expect out of him.
Yep.
Go ahead and continue.
This is where you and I really hate it. Jake Gensel's a fucking rental. Get over it.
Even if he is, I still.
It doesn't matter. They're not going
to
attempt to
fucking
sign
bring
him.
this point up. Go with your bullshit.
Below me. Martin Necas is 31 years old. He makes 1.8 million.
He'll see a slight raise.
But it's not going to be
crazy.
It's not going to be a rapid degree. He might not even. He might even take the discount. Depends. Nosen is 31. He makes $767,000.
He's not going to anyway.
He's not going to make a lot of money.
He's not relevant anyway.
Brett Pesce, who's a right defenseman, makes $4 million. He might see an increase to as high as 6.
That's what I have him about. I have him roughly 6 years, 6 million, maybe even a little more, but right around that range is.
I would put him at 6 million just on the basis of Hampus Lindholm.
So I'm glad you brought up Brett Pesce. I saw an article on this doing a little bit of research. Brett Pesce, this past offseason, turned down an extension of 5 to 6 years in the $4 to $5 million range. So right off the bat, $6 million is going to be the minimum for this guy. He's going to be right around that minimum.
Glad you mentioned that. Carolina is deep on the right defensive side of things.
Glad you mentioned that. They don't have a defenseman under contract past 2024-25. It's not as deep as you think. Everyone is up out of their major key core right now. After 2024-25, there is not a single defenseman on their roster right now.
Goes to my point. I'm glad you mentioned that, you fucker. They have $62 million in cap next year. That won't be a problem.
Well, obviously, but none of these guys have been signed yet.
It doesn't matter. That's all I'm saying.
Number's going to go down.
The money is double. So
then that money is going to get.
It's double the fucking money.
But that 62 is going to go down when a bunch of guys get
signed. No fucking shit, but it's still double what they have. Even if they use 27 million this year. Oh my God. It doesn't matter because it's still double. So if they use the 27 million this year, then it's going to be less people to sign next year, you jamoke.
They're not going to have double next year because half that money's going to go this year.
But if they use all of that this year, the 27 million, they're going to have 33 million next year to sign whatever left they have, which is not going to be as much.
It's going to be less than 33 million. I hate to tell you that right now.
No,
Go
it's
ahead.
not.
Let's hear your breakdown.
Can you do fucking math? What's 62 minus 27? Come on.
They're going to end up, 62 minus 37 is actually 27 is actually 35. First of all,
35, and you don't think that's a fucking possibility that they'll have enough next year?
But there's going to be even more guys to run up coming up, and there's going to be extensions that are going to be.
I wouldn't call it even more guys, buddy. I mean, this is a huge laundry list of people.
So give me your breakdown right now. Let's hear this.
Of what? Of what I see these guys make. We're just at Brett Pesce. Can I get this Brady Shea?
I want to bring up one guy right now in particular that's going to be the biggest key piece of why Martin Necas is going to be moved. His name is Seth Jarvis.
Don't worry, I'll get to him.
I want to get into him.
No, we're going to get into the RFA soon. Don't you worry about it, Bumpkin. We're going to get there.
You want to use your friggin' UFA's argument? Here's where my main argument comes in. Seth Jarvis, 22 years old, had a 33-goal, 67-point season. He is already better than Martin Necas. He's better than him. Let me start by saying that at the age of 22. This guy here, even if he gets a bridge contract, is going to see the minimum to 6 to 6.5 million.
I don't know about that.
There is no way
you might be able to get him on a cheaper bridge. Listen, it happens. There's a lot of people that take cheap bridge deals, knowing the cap situation, believing in the team. We're not even out of the fucking UFAs yet.
There is no way a guy who is better than Martin Necas, who is going to see probably about 7 mil, is going to take less than him in a bridge deal for about 3 years.
It depends on the length of the bridge deal and the value of the bridge deal. He's going to get roughly
the minimum of 3 years, 6 to 6.5 mil. That is that's not a prediction. That's a guarantee if he sees a bridge.
He's not fucking Austin Matthews, who's going to get a 4-year, $13 million deal like that.
I'm going to give you some comps to Seth Jarvis. I want you to look up Trevor Zegras and Cole Caulfield's contracts right now. That is what you'd see if he gets a potential long-term deal. If he gets a bridge, it's going to be a potential.
Seth Jarvis is not as good as Trevor Zegras.
Seth Jarvis,
in terms of his ceiling, look at the team.
Zegras is a higher ceiling, but the thing
look at the team that they're on, though. The team differential on it, like a higher talent level of Zegras,
hitting his ceiling than Trevor Zegras does of his.
I don't believe in that. But anyway, we're gonna finish with the UFAs because you're really aggravating me.
Yeah, shut your face and argue UFAs.
Brady, I'm gonna fucking smack you. Brady Shea is 30. He makes $5.25 million. That's going to be another contract that I could see him probably taking at minimum 6, but he'll probably want
more.
That's what I'm saying.
At minimum 7.5. Two good comps are Torrey Krug and the Noah Hannafin contract.
But we have to look at some of these other aspects too. And from Carolina, I'll get to this point later on. I'll actually bring that up later. Tony DeAngelo, who's 28, he's a right defenseman.
Gone.
I think he's gonna. Yeah, I think they're gonna let him walk.
And we can agree with that. Gone. I didn't even put him in my notes.
Chatfield is 27. He's a right defenseman, and he makes $763,000.
Even if he says he's not going to get a gigantic extension, I didn't really look too much into Chatfield's number as part of my argument.
Oh, I looked into every little fucking nook and cranny I could find, Alex.
But I got plenty here. Don't you worry.
Yeah, we'll get. So now the RFAs. Necas, 25, currently makes $3 million. I wouldn't be surprised if he could also take a bridge deal as well.
He's not taking a bridge deal at 25 years old. He wants to get paid. He's waited long enough. He wants to get paid.
He is an RFA, so they
is an RFA, but I don't think they're going to get. He's not going to want a second deal.
He's not going to want a second just bridge. Qualify him.
He's not going to want a second bridge. This kid is too talented to be able to do that. And here's the thing when it comes to Martin Necas. He knows what his potential could be. This is my biggest argument with Carolina.
So don't all players. That's really
he is stuck in a log jam where he can't hit his full potential in Carolina, and that's going to be part of his argument.
He's stuck in the log jam because of the signings and the additions that they've made at the trade deadline. That's it.
But no, even with the trade deadline, he will never be on that first line. Never.
He's not going to be on the first line anyway because of Sebastian Aho.
Yeah, exactly. He will never. He's going to be playing middle 6 minutes. During his time in Carolina, he spent time on the third line this year as a right winger. Now think about this.
Because of who they acquired at the deadline.
It was even before that. It wasn't just because of who they acquired. Even before that, he was seeing time in the third line as a right winger.
This is your core. Your core is going to be Svechnikov, Teravainen, Aho, Jarvis, and Necas. Those are going to be your four core individuals in the forward front.
That's going to probably set you off right now that I did a little more research into the last week or two. I don't think it's 100% that they end up going Teravainen over Getzel. I'm not saying it will definitely be the case, but
No,
I don't think it's 100%.
but it depends on the money. It depends.
So here's the thing with Teravainen. I did some research on this. He spent some time in the fourth line this year. He had a little bit of a down year, not a bad year, just for his standards, a little bit of a down year. He was under 60 points. He's provided more as himself as a playmaker on the power play, but he also spent some time in the fourth line this year. The thing when it comes to Teravainen is he's going to probably want a little bit of a raise. He'll be in that $7 million range if they end up signing him. So I want to do the numbers breakdown. We currently have Carolina's cap on cap friendly. I think it was 27 mil right now?
27.3.
Okay. So let's use the main guys here, because right now it shows they have 18 forwards, but when you're in the playoffs, you can have an unlimited amount of players up here. A lot of these guys won't even be here.
Not at the night that you play. You still have to only have 23 players on the roster.
But the point is they have 18 forwards, 10 defensemen, and 3 goalies. That's 31 players. Yeah. Obviously, they're going to have their 18 players that they have suited up. Their 2 goalies and their 3 healthy scratches. At the end of the day, or injuries, whatever it might be at the end of the day. But point being, so reality, you can have 23 players on said roster at the time. So,
this may hold on, Alex. This actually may help you real quick, because so the current lineup per daily faceoff, which is Elliot Friedman, I believe that's his website, right? I think that's owned by Friedman.
Because I saw this earlier,
and it has changed a little bit, because this might help with your point. They have Jake Gensel, Aho, and Svechnikov on your top line.
Damn it, I hit Carolina Hurricane tickets. Hold on a minute. All right.
They have Jake Gensel, Aho, Svechnikov as the first line.
Correct.
Teravainen, Kotkaniemi, Necas as your second line. Martinuk, Stahl, Jarvis as the third. Drury, Kuz, and Nosen as the fourth. That is, I'm assuming, what you were going to try and bring up as the big guys.
Yes. So let's both I want to bring up a point when it comes to this. We both see Martin Necas as more of a center versus a right winger, correct?
I think he's versatile for both.
I think he's versatile. I agree. But I see him with a longer-term career as a center versus a right winger. They're currently having Seth Jarvis play more on the right wing right now. They see that guy more as a future 2C. The only reason why he's played more time in the right wing.
No, I think Jarvis will remain as a right winger.
I don't, because he's only his biggest struggle right now is his face-off numbers. He's under 40%.
Which is why he's going to be
but that's for now. Winger. That's why they're going to keep him and develop him more. He's only 22 years old. He's got plenty of time to bring up his face-off stature. He will get better at it as he gets older. Again, he's only 22 years old. He's not locked into that. And he's shown how good he can be statistically. He's going to work on some of these things over the offseason. I'm not saying he's ever going to be one of the best face-off guys in the league or anything even close to it. But I think as he gets older, you could see his numbers creep to that 48-50% range for face-off.
Not good enough for a 2C.
If you're putting up projected numbers of a point per game once you hit your prime as a 2C, I think that's good enough. I don't think he has to be otherworldly good. But if you get me 50% range, that's at least respectable.
But look what he's doing, and look what he's doing as a right winger. They can keep him as a right winger. I understand.
For the time being, but his future sees at the 2C spot.
I understand your point. I understand your point with the logjam at center, and there are easy solutions to that.
But it's a lot bigger than you think. Jack Drury, who you mentioned, bottom 6 guy, but he is also an RFA. They're going to need to sign him.
He's going to get $1.5 million. He's not going to get a lot.
I think he gets more than that. He had almost 30 points this year. I think he gets closer
to how much are you going to really? So 30 points is worth how much to you?
About 2.5, 3 mil.
Oh my God.
That's a bottom 6 guy. That's a bottom 6 guy.
For 30 points?
Yeah, look at what freaking your boy Colton Guillemi's making. He didn't even get 30.
Oh, I know. That's ridiculous. Don't worry. Actually, I think they move on from Kotkaniemi.
And that's funny that you think that they move on for him when you just said right now you don't think it's worth $1.5 million when he can't even produce 30 million. He makes almost.
I think that system does not foster Kotkaniemi at all.
I can actually agree with that. That system does not foster Kotkaniemi. However, when you look at a guy like this, my biggest argument over this, and it still remains the same, when you have a guy who has played with an abundance of talent in Carolina, consistent middle 6 minutes, and has shown that he cannot progress past he had one season in the 40-point range. Outside of that, he's played over 75 games.
They're not developing him. They're not. It's so obvious. They're not even.
You're playing him as a 2C. I get Brenda Moore's system doesn't really, and that's part of the reason why I think Necas could move.
High skill players don't do well, but Necas plays well in it. But because Necas also has a different style of game.
Necas has a much higher ceiling than this, though. That's my point. He's more of been a 50-plus point guy than what he's showing in Carolina, stuck in middle 6 minutes. That's why. And here's another. This is just a ripple chain reaction. You brought up that Carolina wants to get younger, which I agree on. I don't think they want to get younger at forward. They want to get younger on defense. I think we can both agree.
They want to remain They want to remain consistently young at the forward core, which is what
they have plenty of youth at forward already. They do have plenty of youth at forward. Aho is 26. Svechnikov's only 24. Teravainen, he's 29. He's a little up there in age. I'll give you that. Obviously, Seth Jarvis is only 22. Jack Drury's only 24. There's plenty of youth that is still there in Carolina. That's not where all their age comes in. Their age comes in their defense, which every single player currently on contract will be up either this year or next year on that current top 6 decor that they have. The biggest issue when it comes to Carolina is they're going to want to find some youth in defense. A smart trade for Necas would be a 1-for-1 for a young stud top 4 defense.
They're not going to trade. They're not going to trade just simply the rights, and they're not going to do a sign and trade. If you sign him to $7 million, who's your trade partner?
There's plenty of teams out there. My team, for example, is a perfect. Montreal's a perfect example.
Montreal's not taking Martin Necas.
Yeah, are you kidding me? Look at their center position. They outside of Ryan. They have Suzuki. Even if they don't put Necas right away at the.
So you're going to tell me. So you're going to
hold on. All the time.
You're going to tell me that they're going to move away from Kirby Dach, who's younger and has a higher ceiling.
Even if they keep Kirby Dach, who's injury plagued, by the way, if you want to talk about that guy, even if you bring up Kirby Dach, you're still looking at a guy like Martin Necas, who will play consistent top 6 minutes, who can play a center position in case if needed.
Montreal.
The biggest knock on Montreal all season was the fact that we said they were a one-line team. They're
not going to take on $7 million and then give up.
They will. They have the cap.
Yeah, and then who do you send from? But who do you send from Montreal over? Montreal's not going to give up any of their strong prospects.
Honestly, there's a real possibility.
They're not going to give up their first round picks. They're still
move a guy like Mayu, and maybe a pick or two. They have 3 first-round picks.
They're not giving up.
They have 3 first-round picks. They can move a guy like Mayu in a first. And that gets you younger, and you get you a good prospect defenseman right there. That's number 1. Number 2,
they don't need it.
They don't have depth. They're outside that top line, and Kirby Dach, who can't stay healthy, they don't have any freaking depth.
Trust me, they're not.
They don't have depth.
They're not going to put Kirby Dach as their third line center.
I didn't say they would. You could put Martin Necas at the 2 RW.
You're going to put.
You can put Necas to the 2.
They're not going to do that.
That's a perfect explanation. And that guy's going to put up, if he goes to, I'm using Montreal, Philadelphia. I could even see a team like, those are the 2 teams that come to mind probably the most, like Montreal and Philly, because we both need center help desperately. I could even see maybe a team like Columbus.
It's not going to be Montreal.
That's Rick. Go away.
Rick, go away. This is the Cam and Alex show. This is not the Rick show. Go away, Rick.
Okay, bye.
I'll start fighting with you. Bye. God, what the fuck?
God, what? I don't care.
This is our show. We run this show. We run this bitch.
It makes potential sense. There's also a team like Columbus that needs some young friggin' top 6 help.
With what fucking money? With what money?
Columbus has plenty of money.
They're porked. No, they don't.
There's plenty of teams.
No, they don't. Money. You fucking jamoke. They don't have $7 million just to throw away.
That's why you make a player for player trade. That's what they're there for.
What are you going to give them in return? They're going to have to. Carolina's going to have to eat money that they don't fucking have.
That's why I say they're not going to be able to keep this guy because they're going to have to friggin' sign guys.
So you're going to sign Martin Necas to $7 million and then take a guy for $7 million. So you have a net of 0.
Eric Gobranson's only making $4 million. There's a guy right there. Adam Boquist is only making $2.6 million.
They're not going to get rid of Adam
You're taking a $4.5 million cap drop, and then you also throw in picks.
I agree. Listen, I agree with you that Columbus needs center help for sure. So doesn't Calgary. Calgary actually has the money to be able to do it.
There's another team. You just beat that. Calgary needs center help too.
I never said I was ignoring the possibility that Necas gets moved. I said he's not going to.
Have you seen how much cap that Columbus has next offseason? They only have $21 million invested in forwards. You know that,
they
right?
only have $5 million available next year.
Right? No, that's this year. Right next year.
So now we're going to bring next year into. So now we're going to bring next year into the mix, which brings to my point to the bridge deals for someone like Seth Jarvis, which makes it a larger possibility that he stays.
Seth Jarvis is going to stay. That's obvious. But
I'm
he's
talking
better
about
than
Necas. I'm talking about Necas.
So
There-
let
it-
me go over my numbers, what I have here written down. Seth Jarvis,
fucking
I see him, if he's getting a bridge, about 3 to 6.5 million. Let's cut down this cap number right now because you're at about 27. We're at 27 million. What do you prefer, Seth Jarvis, in a long-term deal or bridge? You want to go bridge deal?
You can
That's
still
more
put him
like-
at a bridge deal and have
He's
him be
not
an
getting 4
RFA.
mil. Throw that out the window. There's no shot in hell this guy gets 4 million.
I know he might get 5. He could get 5.5,
At
6.
least a minimum of 6.
You
are
can
not
get
paying
2
a guy who
years.
got 33 goals at the age of 22.
You can
last
give him a
5
year at 6 million or something. You can get him at a bridge deal, buddy. Trust
You are
me.
not
It's-
getting him that low. This guy is a friggin' stud. You're going to get that guy. Listen, Travis Konechny, my guy, just got friggin' 32 goals last year. People are putting him in that 8 to 9 mil range, which I think is lunacy.
If
He's
I'm
more
Carolina-
of a 7.5 point guy.
If I'm Carolina, I'll honestly let some of your defensemen what you got to get. You're deep on the right defensive side. I think you let
But
Pesci
here's
walk.
the thing, you bring up letting them walk. Do you know how much chemistry Pesci and Brady Skay have?
It's
They've
not
been
just a-
line mates together forever.
Their current 6 defensemen: Jacob Slavin, Brent Burns, Brady Shea, Brady Shea / Brett Pesci / Tony DeAngelo, Orlov, and Chatfield. You're really going to pay all of those defensemen
I didn't
north of
say you
$6
pay all of
million
them.
a year?
Tony DeAngelo's gone. Brett Burns is gone when his contract runs up next year.
That's next year. So
There's
time
2
out.
guys
Hold on.
right there.
Time out. And you also have a guy like Scott Moreau who's up and coming,
He's not going to get paid instantly. And
No,
he'll
he's
make
not.
use-
but he's a good defenseman.
Yeah,
You
but
do
he's-
not
he-
need to pay.
he-
But look at
he's
the
not gonna
amount.
be put into- He's going to probably be in the lineup next year on an ELC. The money
Brady
that-
Shea is going to be projected to make at least $6 million.
Brady Shea,
Slave-
I have him at a closer to 7 mil. He's
Slavin-
been underpaid for a while.
Slavin currently makes more than 5.5.
What do I
Brent
have?
Burns makes 7. Orlov makes 7. You're really going to put close to $48 million in your decor,
But they're all up
especially as your
after next
bottom.
year. They're all up after next year. That's the point. You're
And
not.
Orlov's not like
Didn't
old.
you yourself say you want to trade Brett Burns?
You could trade Brent Burns to make that happen.
And you could. Now it's going to be tough to find a trade partner. But the thing is, Carolina's strength more than anything comes from their decor. Brady Shea's not leaving. They are not going to let him walk. Brett Pesci's had some shoulder issues. I understand that. I think that could bring his
No,
contract
they'll
down.
sign Shea. I think they'll sign Shea, but they will let Pesci go.
I think Pesci stays, but it's going to be a little bit
Oh.
more of an abbreviated
So
contract.
then that means your top 4 would comprise $28 million minimum.
But that's the issue. Their top guys, Martin Necas is going to be playing middle 6 minutes where he's at. That's why you let him walk, because you have more pressing needs.
No, he
Your
won't.
defensemen
He'll play
are
on the
more of a
second
pressing
line.
need.
You can put Jarvis and Necas on the second line together.
No, not long term. You can alternate on second and third line. He's
No,
gonna have
you
some
could
time on the
you could
third line,
easily.
too.
I don't think you understand how easily you could do that.
Just
That
say you want to put Kotkaniemi. He's playing the second center.
no,
spot.
that is what the daily faceoff says and has him at. I
They're
don't
gonna be
agree with that.
alternating those 3 guys. That's where middle 6 minutes come in. He will be. He could play second line minutes, yes. But it won't necessarily be the whole full season. We have some time in the third
Jarvis is
pairing too.
playing more bottom.
Not only that, you have Jordan Stahl, who's a center. He's still there. He's not going anywhere. Jack Drury needs to
got
be
one
signed. He's a center. He's not going
He's
anywhere.
got 1 year. I don't.
He's an RFA. They're not going to trade
But
him.
they're not going to invest all of their cap money in the defense. They can't afford to.
I'm not saying they're going to invest all of it,
But
they
that's
have
where that
3 or
money is
4
going to come from to be able to sign Martin Necas.
But that's the thing. You have to. But they're deep. You're not going to friggin' have 3 new defensemen on your team right off the bat. This is where you.
They're
vet
not.
these guys.
They will have Slavin.
D'Angelo will
They
be
will have-
gone. Morrow
will
will
have-
be up next year.
They will have Slavin. They will have Shea. They will have Orlov. Strong left defenseman core
That's
right
3.
down there.
And then
you'll
I
have
think
Burns.
they signed Pesci because you have no right. I mean, you're right. D.
You will have Burns. Hold on. You'll have Burns.
There's 4.
They're going to sign Chatfield, and you're going to have Scott Moreau.
But you keep Pesci because he's got chemistry
No
with
way.
Brady Shea.
I don't think you can. You can't invest like $35 million that way in your defensive core.
I think they do it for another year because they want to keep this
no,
team
they'd
as
be
good as
stupid.
possible.
And then they're
Brett
old as
Burns
shit.
is gone next year. Brett Burns will not be re-signed there next year. I
Oh yeah,
absolutely
fine,
agree with
but
that.
that's fine. Scott Moreau can easily take that. He is a young
And
stud
that's fine.
defenseman.
I think we can both agree with that. That I don't believe Brett Burns will be back past next year. You
they're
even said
not
he
wor-
might get traded, which is a possibility.
They're
He's
not
39
worried
years
about.
old.
I genuinely don't think they're worried about their defensive core because that team is a very. I think you could put a fucking Muppet on that defensive core and they're going to play well under Rob
I
Brind'Amour's
can partially agree with that because Brendan Moore's system's excellent. He's always
But they're
been
not going to. If you're telling me that Brett Pesci just said denied the 4.5 to 5.5, whatever the hell you said it was,
I'm
value,
not saying it's to be a lot bigger. I'd say it's going to be roughly around
but then
6.
they're not going to sign him. I think that was telling you what Carolina is willing to pay, and since
You know what? For the sake of argument, I'll give you Brett Pesci. Just for the sake of argument, fit them under the cap. And we haven't even introduced the possibility of them letting Teravainen go over Getzel, which is, I think, a realistic thing too.
that could be a possible. I doubt they get. I doubt they take
$3 more million if they do that.
Gensel has said that he is going to test the market. He has already said that.
And I agree. I don't think Pittsburgh re-signs him.
No, they're not. They don't have the money.
He's gonna, yeah.
They don't have the money to be able to sign a player to like a $9-10 million deal, which is what Jake Gensel's going to want.
So if you keep Teravainen at $7 million, that gets you to about $20 million.
He genuinely might get less.
I think he's right around.
I personally don't think he'll get less. But
I think he's right around 7. You might be able to talk me into 6.5, but he's been.
I think at worst, I think at very, very worst, 6, at best 7.
Here's the thing with Carolina. They know that to keep a lot of these guys, they're going to have to eat some bad years towards the end of those contracts. Brady Skjei, Pesci.
I fucking hate your analyses of contracts. Of course, when you sign a 29-year-old to a $7 million contract,
but that's
going to be some decline.
If you want to keep them, you're going to have to give them a little bit more than what you want to give them. So if you let Teravainen walk, that's a massive hole in your top 6. Unless if you keep Jake Getzel, then that's filled.
I think they will prioritize Teravainen.
Even for the sake of argument, I'll give you that. So that gets you down to $20 million. If you want to keep Martin Necas, that gets you down to $13 million because he's going to be right around 7.
Let's assume 7.
All right, so that'll get you to about $13 million now. You want to keep. You're obviously going to re-sign Seth Jarvis. This is the big key here. He's
Bridge deal, 2 years, $6 million.
6. You know, if you want to say 2 years, I might be able to listen. I think he gets closer to 3, but I'll for the sake of argument take 2 years. So you do that, you're suddenly down to $7 million. All those defensemen are still to sign.
Brett Pesci.
You still have Martin Nook, who I don't know if you sign or not. I mean,
they'll take cheap deals. If that's the element.
I think Drury's getting 2.5. Personally,
I think that's a lot. I think they're gonna give him the prove it contract at 2 years at 1.5.
I think he's posted at 2.5, 3. Let's say 2.25 to meet kind of in the middle.
But to me, Alex, the players that they need to sign are much more valuable than a couple of the players on the roster that can be easily moved.
But I just went over the forward aspect of this.
I know.
We haven't gone into the defenseman yet.
We're
down to under $5 million. You'd realize that, right? I just mentioned Teravainen, who eats up 7. You keep Necas that eats up 7. That gets you from 27 to 13. And Seth Jarvis, who's going to eat up probably 6 to 6.5. That right there gets, and then if you sign Drury, that's going to eat up about 2.25. I'll meet you in the middle on that. Okay. That's going to get you to under $5 million left. Okay. Now, one of the things you brought up, Evgeny Kuznetsov, which I find is a very interesting point. You say they're going to probably likely trade.
Let me take this one. So this leads me to the tradable assets. Kotkaniemi, you have 4.8 at 6 years. That's actually a really good deal for a 23-year-old who I feel is underdeveloped.
Who hasn't even put up 30? Who's only put up over 30 points?
He is underdeveloped. He was literally playing on a fucking shitty Montreal Canadiens team before.
And now he's playing in Carolina and still sucking.
In a system that favors defense more than an offensive capability. You cannot argue that.
I'm not arguing that, but he should still put up more production. Look at the forwards around him who were picked further out that have developed a lot better than he has. He's been there for 3 years now.
His development was ruined in Montreal. Development was ruined in Montreal. No question.
I will say he got rushed there. I agree with that.
He got rushed.
He was only 21 years old.
But he's 23. He's 23, can still very much be saved. And at $4.8 million for 6 years for a cap. For a cap that is going to be steadily increasing over the next 5 years, as per I think it was Gary Bettman said, we're going to keep increasing.
I don't know
That's actually
how many years is it supposed to increase for?
I think it's going to go up it's going up 4.3 this year at
And I
minimum.
know next year it's
It's
going up.
at minimum. That's what he said. It's going to go up, I think, another 4 next year, and I think 5 or something like that. It might go up another 5 the year after that, and then it might go back down to 1 or 2. They're going to start building it, especially with the all-time high money that they're making at the current moment. Likely,
Okay.
and I'm going to go to hold on, we're going to do the tradable assets. Kotkaniemi is one of them. 4.8 for 6 years. That's a very movable contract for someone that could play on the right wing and at a depth line centerpiece. Because a lot of times, teams will pay their third line centers around $4 or $5 million. It's not an uncommon thing. Not done.
I agree with the money. I have no issue but here's the thing.
6 years at 20, buddy, 23 years old.
You realize that contract will end when he's 30, right? And if he doesn't develop at all, you have an anchor for at least 5 years.
I doubt he wouldn't develop. And here's why.
You don't know if this guy's going to develop or not. He was on the lower Carolina team and still sucked.
And here's why. I think he would. Here's teams that I think he could develop under. Pittsburgh would be one. I think he would learn tremendously under Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby.
So he's a 3C there, I assume, correct?
He would be. And you got to look at the age of Crosby and Malkin. They'll be leaving the league soon.
Here's my issue with Pittsburgh. What do they give up? Because they already don't have a first-round pick this year.
You're not getting a first-round pick for Kotkaniemi. I'm pretty sure.
I understand that, but
for a cap dump,
you have to move a first for him. You don't.
For a cap dump, you're getting a third or a fourth.
Keep every asset they can because how horrible their friggin' prospect pool is.
But you're getting a very, very young forward, so I think they give up a third or a fourth.
I'm not arguing that, but the term makes that a massive risk. I won't say he's impossible to move, but it makes it more of a challenge when you have a guy who has not proven himself in a good team. Mind you, not the best system.
So you get a fourth for him. But given Carolina's situation and the fact that they healthy scratch him, they'll be willing to take a fourth for him.
So I remember Harry bringing that up with the healthy scratches. He wasn't healthy scratch as much as I thought. He only missed, I think, 3 or 4 games this year. I don't know why that was really much of an argument. But
they'll take a fourth. If it means getting a cap dump, they'll take a fourth.
So he has also played middle 6 minutes. A cap dump, I could agree with that. But here's the thing. If you're Pittsburgh, you look at this, and this guy doesn't end up working out. Where from Pittsburgh's perspective, looks at this and says, okay, he sucked in Carolina. He can't develop. Mind you, it's a little more defensive system, but he's played with much better talent in Carolina versus Montreal. If he sucks there, what makes us think with the middle, he'll probably be playing against the third line center because Malkin's still the 2C, Crosby's still the 1C. What makes us think where Pittsburgh has had a history of having shit bum depth?
Coach and culture.
He's going to have a brand new coach. Sullivan's probably going to be gone this year.
I know. I've
been following a lot of Pittsburgh.
I think that I understand that. I understand the rumors, but I think they bring back Sullivan for one more year. They do a little bit of a retool.
Well, we'll agree to disagree on that. I think he's gone personally, but we'll see. I could see the argument of keeping him too, just because of his history. But we'll see on that.
Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh's a likely candidate for Kotkaniemi. Calgary also needs help at center. Might be a good fresh start for him. Not the most ideal, because I don't think there's a lot of people that can teach him. Who's there? Michael Backlund, or what's his name? Nazem Kadri. Yeah, those aren't the greatest teachers, but it's a possible landing spot. Anaheim is another possible one.
But it's the centers. They don't need him.
It's a possibility.
No, they're not going after him.
Detroit needs a center. Detroit needs centers.
Maybe.
They do. Oh, look at their roster. They're not exactly strong on that front. They have the money.
I don't think it's impossible to move Kotkaniemi. I just think it's going to be a massive
another option.
With the amount of term he has.
Last option that I have. San Jose.
Maybe as a prove it deal. That I think out of all the teams you name, that's the one that makes the most sense. But the thing is, he has no talent to work.
I think the two that make the most sense. I think the two that make the most sense are actually Pittsburgh and San Jose.
I don't think Pittsburgh is much. I think San Jose would make sense, but only for the sheer fact that. But the main issue is he has no talent to work with there. They got a bunch of plumbers and.
That's why, but I think that's why Pittsburgh also makes the most sense. It's an in-division trade, which I think is the less likely. But I
Carolina hasn't been afraid to make in-division trades. That I don't really think it's a major.
But I think in terms of overall development for Kotkaniemi, it makes sense for Pittsburgh from just getting rid of someone. San Jose makes the most sense. Second tradable asset is of getting Kuznetsov, $3.9 million for 1 year.
Continue with him.
Or they buy him out. which would
How
only
much cap do you eat doing that?
I think it would only be 900,000.
I don't know. I haven't looked into the buyout perspective of this, so I'm not exactly sure how the buyout would work with him.
They could also break it up over the span of 2 years, like the no.
That's
they can't,
usually
I'm
how
sorry.
most go.
Yeah.
He'll probably see a penalty. There was a team. I want to mention one other thing. There were overages announced. Was Carolina one of them? There was about 10 teams with overages announced.
I don't know.
I want to look that up real quick. Continue with your teams. I'll bring up Kuznetsov in a minute, but continue with him.
Likely places for him. Boston. Boston needs a center. And a $3.9 million hit is actually pretty good. San Jose, again, San Jose needs centers. I still think Pittsburgh needs centers, but they're not going to trade into Pittsburgh. He's played in Washington. I don't see that happening. Anaheim, again, like you said, they're good at centers, but I think for Anaheim, it's the veteran aspect of it.
He ain't a veteran, though. He's 23.
Kuznetsov is.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was saying Kotkaniemi. I'm sorry. Disregard that.
So Anaheim might make a better fit for Kuznetsov because of the veteran piece.
I want to mention something about
and then obviously Detroit.
I want to mention two things about Kuznetsov. Number one, something you have not mentioned yet. He has a 10-team no movement clause. It's going to make it a little more challenging. If you look into that, he does have a
little bit. Could make it a little bit more challenging, but I don't see it impossible.
And number two, he has been before the trade to Carolina. He was in the AHL, and since he's been in Carolina, he's mainly played on their fourth line. This is a guy who is pretty much washed at this point.
I don't want to call him completely washed. I don't want to go as far as that. We haven't had a strong enough sample size for him. He's also gone into the NHL Players Association. I swear to God, sometimes I think it's you and Rick too that are just so quick after 1 or 2 seasons of adversity are just like, the guy's washed, and then he might come back and have a stellar season. People said that about Erik Karlsson. Oh, he's a defenseman, won the fucking Norris Trophy last year. Like,
Eric,
cut the fucking bullshit. Like,
there's exceptions. I'm not saying there's not exceptions, but the issue with this guy here is when you look to the big perspective, he's making $3.8 million for another year. I look at him similar to a player in our team, Cam Atkinson. If you're going to trade Kuznetsov,
Kuznetsov is way better than Cam Atkinson.
They're both washed. They're both washed.
Kuznetsov is way better than Cam Atkinson. He had a far better career than Cam Atkinson too.
He's had a better career. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about right here and now, not career. What you're going to have for me for 2024-25. Mm-hmm. The issue with him is, like Cam Atkinson, you're probably going to have to eat some cap to move this guy. I don't think, unless it maybe San Jose might be just as a cap dump to maybe, and you'd have to probably attach a pick to do it, which Carolina might do. Outside of San Jose, I don't think there's a team that's going to take him at $3.8 million. Even Anaheim, they'd probably have to eat a little bit of cap, and that's assuming that team is not in that 10-team no-trade clause. The issue with him is he hasn't shown it since he's been back. He's a shell. I think he's maybe not completely washed, but he's on hole 15 or 16 of his career. You only have him for a year, but I take him in an abbreviated contract if you're going to be a team acquiring him. He's not $3.8 million. Maybe you can get him for $2 million, which means Carolina would probably have to eat a little bit of cap to even move him. I don't think he's impossible to move, but his challenges along the way. That's my point with him. What are you looking at?
My notes. Third tradable asset, Jesper Foss, $2.4 million. Easily movable contract.
Isn't he on long-term injured reserve?
I think right now he might be.
I don't know. I know he's got 1 year left, but if his injury is long-term, like past this year, no one's taking it.
Again, or a buyout. These are cheap contracts that you can easily buy out of and have minimal cap implications. Jordan Staal I doubt they move Jordan Staal.
Yeah, that one just throw out the window. They're not moving Jordan Staal.
But that is also a possibility.
He ain't moving.
Those are 4 key pieces that you can move. You could also move Brent Burns, but that's going to put you into more trouble. I don't think you move that 7 points.
I think he just goes at the end of next season.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. But at that point, if you get rid of Burns, which a team would actually take a player like that because you would need him, then you sign Pesce.
For the sake of argument, say you end up buying out. I don't think they're going to do that for all three of these guys. I want to just
No, they can't buy them out. No, they're not going to do that. They're not going to buy anybody.
They only will probably do that for one of these moves.
It would be Kuznetsov. I think if they were going to do it, they would do it for Kuznetsov because that would give you the maximum value back that you.
I want to look up what the parameters on our Kuznetsov buyout because I don't know how much cap that gives you. Let's see. Hold on. I'm going to just do a quick Google search on that and just see what would do if here it is. Cap friendly states if you were to buy him out. Let's see. June 15th buyout day. You're saving $4 million this year, and then it's a loss of $2 million next year. It's a $1.9 million cap hit for Carolina if they buy him out. So it's the equivalent of what they'd probably have to keep for a trade. Carolina would have to eat $1.9 million in cap per cap friendly if they were to have bought him out, according to this, and he'd be a $1 million a year after. So realistically, they could do that. That is a possibility.
That would save you $2 million.
So that gets you back. I think we were at about like 4 3/4. That would get you to about 6 3/4. Even if you can sign Brady Shea, but then you still only have 2 defenseman spot open. And you have no open spots for the rest of your forwards. You have 12 forwards, 4 defensemen now. Even if you bring up 2 guys from the minors, you're still over the cap. And then you also have no room for healthy scratch guys, too, in case injuries happen. That's the issue.
You can do emergency loans in the NHL.
You can do that, but it still affects the cap.
But you can't go over a certain percentage of the cap. That much I know.
So that's where the issue comes in. Is just it's such a cap crunch, and the benefit to the player long term would be better if he had a career start elsewhere than if he stayed in Carolina, for the sheer fact that he could probably hit his potential ceiling a lot more than if he stayed playing consistent middle 6 minutes in Carolina under Rod Brindamore's system, especially when they have so many defenseman contracts coming up. I'm not saying they're going to sign them all, but you have to sign some because you can't get hit with a wave of brand new guys when you're a cup contender right now. That's my main points with this. Anyways,
right. I'm doing math.
Do math. I've already showed you. I put in the numbers for you. It's an extremely tough cap crunch. It's going to be more than Kuznetsov needed. Even if you keep Morrow, you're still eating another $800K, which will probably put you over the cap.
So, if they actually get rid of Kotkaniemi alone,
that's a big tough ask, though.
They can do it if they let Brett Pesce walk. If you sign Teuvo Teravainen to 7, Shea to 7, because like I said, that team is deep on the right defensive side. They do not need Brett Pesce. They do not need him.
He's been such a chemistry guy with Brady Shea.
He didn't play in Game 3, and I don't think he played in Game 4. I'll put it this way:
and inseparable.
They're gonna need to make sacrifices, and unfortunately, that sacrifice is going to come from the defensive end.
I think my argument is I think it comes from Martin Necas. That's always been the thing because I don't think they want to. They do have to start getting younger on defense. I agree, but not all at once.
You signed Teuvo to 7. I think he might get 6.5. To be honest with you, a $1.5 million increase. But I'm gonna do this off the worst case scenarios that we see. Brady Shea, I think he would honestly get 6.5 as well at a worst case scenario. But I'm going to give 7.
Yeah, so there's 14 right there. You're down to 13.
Necas, I think, is going to get 6.5, but I'm going to go 7 for the sake of argument.
So now you're
Jarvis. I'm going to go 2 years at 6.
You're out of money. You're at the cap already.
I'm at the cap. Drury at $2 million.
You're over $2 million now.
Comtois at 0.925.
Coughlin at $3 million.
Yeah. But then if you trade Kotkaniemi, you have 1.8.
You still need to fill out a forward spot and a defensive spot, though. And that's just to go 12-6.
No, you do not. No, you do not. Because you would have Comtois, Aho, and Svetch, Teravainen, Jarvis, Necas, Martin Uxtal, Fost, Lemieux, Drury, and Nosen.
Lemieux, isn't Lemieux up?
He's cheap.
I don't think they're going to
sign him. I think he's got another year.
I think he's up. I don't think they're going to sign him. So either way.
And then you would have Slavin, Burns, Shea, Orlov, Morrow, and Chatfield.
So you just ripped out 2 big pieces of that decor just to keep Martin Necas to play middle 6 minutes. And that's now assuming you have no more healthy scratches. And no more, no injuries. If a guy gets injured, do you see how tight this is?
Also, did you hear Kuznetsov's name anywhere in there? So Kuznetsov's name is still on the roster, which means that's still a piece. And any other name that's also mentioned on the roster.
Name your 12 forwards again.
Comtois, Ahos, Fetch. Teravainen, Jarvis, Necas, Martinuk, Stahl, Fost, Lemieux, Drury, Nosen. So that leaves...
But that's also assuming Jesper Fost even plays next year.
13 if you include Kuznetsov because he's not being traded. We already said they get rid of Kotkaniemi. So if they elect to move on from Kuznetsov, that frees up. So now in that 1.8 million that I said you have now free.
You had another 1.9 million, but now you have no
Let's
debt.
just say you trade them. Let's go for the maximum value here. Now you trade, you free up 3.9. That's 5 points. Sorry.
No one's taking him at 3.8, but go ahead.
It's $5.7 million. Yeah, people will take him at 3.9.
Not at this stage. Not at this stage.
I think you're dead wrong. Carolina did it. Dead wrong.
Carolina did it just as a let's see what happens. I still think.
I think you're dead wrong. You have now 5.7 million in cap that you can spend on cheap players, which will likely happen.
I don't see it because you're just log jamming this guy.
And I wouldn't.
And now you're also assuming
who the fuck are you long jamming? Okay, fine. So then if Jesper Fost doesn't play and he goes on long-term LTIR, add another 2.4 million to the LTIR.
But now you have 11 forwards if you're moving Kuznetsov.
They'll have players in their backup. And you have
looking into that.
And if you, hold on. Now we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty argument. So if Fost goes on all LTIR, or if they wait, then they get what, half the value? So add another 1.2 million to that 5.7. Now you're at 6.9. And you're telling me that they can't fill a bottom 6 slot for that?
Here's my realistic
for $2 million
for Carolina. Now that you gave yours, in theory it could work. But here's my thing, realistically, with the Carolina Hurricanes, when you look at the big picture. So right now they'd have 9 forwards for next season. You have 27 mil. If they let Jake Getz a walk, for the sake of argument, you have Taro Teravainen for 7. That gets you to 20. Jake Getz a walks. If you want to see Martin Necas, if you think he's going to stay 8 for 7, fine. That gets you to 13. Martinuk, I think they're going to end up re-signing this guy. I think he gets about 2.5 mil, realistically. That gets you to, what, 10? Well, we'll say, I'll meet in the middle, 10 3/4.
So if you don't sign Martin Necas, you are in the same predicament.
But you have more flexibility with defense, and you still have an
only with defense. Only with defense, you lose more.
No, you can sign Brett Pesce. That's the thing. You can sign Brett Pesce now. That allows you to do that.
It's still a one. No, it's a 1-for-1 player. You're making
Orlov
making a difference.
That's the thing. So you do that. Drury gets the 2.25, but you're also assuming these trades or movements for Kuznetsov and Kotkaniemi are going to be definitely happening too.
They're easily movable contracts.
They're in theory movable, but I don't think Kotkaniemi is going to be as easy to move as you think. The only team I could see doing that with the term he has is San Jose. And I don't think you're going to be able to move Kuznetsov without eating some contract, whether it's via buyout, as you mentioned, or eating some money.
If Boston didn't have the jam at center that we currently have, I would take him.
I don't think the Bruins are going to want to take him at $3.8 billion personally.
4.8.
4.8, even worse.
If it meant just giving up a 4th-round pick for a cap dump, giving me another third-line center option.
But you have to look at it from the other team's perspective. Carolina would probably do that, I agree. But if you look at the other team...
Oh, there's no question they would do it. If it meant keeping Necas, yeah, of course they would do it. That's what I'm talking about, though, Alex.
The thing is, would Boston do it? I don't think they're going to do that for 4.8. All the teams
you mentioned... They did it for Charlie Coyle. And I think
Charlie
Boston
Coyle was good,
Boston
Lockhorn was younger.
Boston has the better coach. Boston has the better locker room. There's no question in my mind. And
Charlie
Boston
Coyle was younger and better at this point than
Bo-
Kuznetsov is.
I'm talking about them currently. They have the better locker room. They have the better coach, and their defense is equally the same. But the defense is locked up for longer.
I think Carolina's defense is a little bit better than Boston's. Not a lot, but they're both good.
They're on par.
I think I'd go like if you had to put a letter grade, I'd put Carolina at an AA minus, Boston an A minus, B plus.
I'm not giving Boston any less than an A minus.
I'm not shitting on him. I know Boston's got a good decor, but realistically, I think if you're going to move Kuznetsov, you're going to have to eat some level of money, regardless.
I want to bring up a reason why I think Kotkaniemi would. I want to bring up a reason why I think Kotkaniemi would thrive here in Boston, and it's Taylor Hall.
Taylor Hall was 27, 28 when you got him.
I understand that.
Improving. And it was a former MVP.
He was a
former
MVP, and look what happened to him. He dropped off significantly ever since he had
left. Not a
MVP.
lot. He was still
he
productive.
did.
Hold on a minute. Taylor Hall, he wasn't like a friggin' bum. His worst years were better than friggin' Kotkaniemi's best.
I still think, but if you look at his attitude, he was able to elevate his game in a place like Boston.
Taylor Hall, when he was in Buffalo, 37 games, had 19 points. He got injured. So that's about a pace of about 45.
That's not the point I'm trying to make, Alex. You're going off of a strict points perspective. I'm talking about his attitude, his ability to elevate his game had increased in Boston.
I don't think Miami has a bad attitude problem. I just think he's potentially broken. I think a strong locker room could fit that. That's why I think Boston would be a potential. Carolina has a good locker room. They're not like a friggin' mess.
Oh, the Boston Bruins locker room is stronger than Carolina's.
I'm not saying it. Boston's is worse or better.
And I honestly think our development
elevate his game.
And I think our development
talent around him. He's not.
And I think the Bruins development program is way better than Carolina and Montreal's currently.
All right, let's have some closing thoughts because we pretty much exaggerated pretty much everything we needed to say here. Give me your closing thought. I'll give my closing thought.
It's a possibility that I'm acknowledged
on it that said player gets moved. How about that?
I think it's a 10% chance he gets moved.
I say 60.
Oh God! So you're like right on the fucking cusp. You're like,
I did it for the sake of argument. I still think
stand by your shit, dude. 60% is like the loser's way of basically saying, "Oh well, he might," but 50-50.
I think he's more probable than not of getting moved. I'll say
that's
60.
not.
You know what? For the sake of argument, I'll bump it to 70.
That's a lot better. That's more of a confidence interval in your own stats.
There's a 70% chance he gets moved due to the logjam, due to the fact they want to prioritize other players, and due to the fact that they don't ever think he'll hit. I will
actually come out and say this. I think there's a higher probability he gets offer sheeted.
I think it's a sign and trade if he gets moved. I don't think anyone's going to want to give up too first.
Be hard pressed if they do a sign and trade with him, just with the way Brett Pesce is handling his contract situation. That's what I would be hard pressed to believe. I think there is a high probability, and they are going to do this for all of their RFAs. They're going to tender the qualifying offers for the RFAs, because I bet you anything, some ballsy son of a bitch somewhere is going to try and offer sheet them.
I can't remember the last time an offer sheet has actually worked. So
it was a couple of years ago, wasn't it? Rick can probably come into that, but don't interrupt us, Rick. It's our show.
Still got signed by Carolina.
Yeah. But someone was ballsy, but they did it. They were offer sheeted. I never said
saying that it actually ended up being the player getting.
Oh, then I don't know about that, but
that's my point.
But I think Necas stays if signed. I don't think he is moved because RFA rights ain't worth a pot to fucking piss in.
I think it's a sign and trade at the end of the day. I think he signs a contract and they trade him elsewhere for either maybe some cap relief.
He might also not even play next year. It depends. This league, just looking at the cap situation, the league is rough. So I'm going to say this. I don't think he moves. Worst case scenario, I think he gets offer sheeted.
I think sign and trade is my prediction. I don't know what team it is. There's a few
get
out
way
there.
More.
Plus, Montreal.
You get way more on the offer sheet. Get way more on the offer sheet.
That's my end take. That's your end take. Folks, thank you for tuning in. This was a good one. I think this was probably one of our most heated debates. I'm going to call this a tie. I'm calling this a tie. I'm calling this
a lick my balls.
I'm calling this a kiss my ass. No, I think realistically, we both made very fair points in this. I think he made fair points where he think he could stay. I made fair points where I think he could go.
Alex is fucking confused whether or not he's going to stay or go because 60% to him apparently is significant.
I moved it to 70 for the sake of argument.
I know, yeah, for the sake of argument. You fucking loser.
He's gonna be moved. 70% chance he gets moved.
Okay, thank you.
But,
ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Like and follow us. And of course, as always, if you have any ideas for anything for us for the sin bin that maybe we don't even think about and that you're curious about what him and I are going to fight upon, give us a shout out. You know, our emails below. And if you guys want to see an actual fight and argument that we had, go watch the game 2 watch party for Boston Bruins versus Maple Leafs, and you'll see Alex and I pretty much go at each other's throats and our heads look like we're about to pop up like a balloon.
All right.
That's it, boys. Everyone. Take care.